Hello, 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 everyone. This is the Reverend Shanika Steens, and I am the Mindful Coach. And today I have a special guest. Well, this evening, his name is David Alston. He was born as Edward Bright, and he's the host of the Underground Subway podcast. He has a phenomenal story of how he was born and raised. And if he decides to share that with us today, we will let him. But other than that, he is going to be talking to us about his determination and drive to lead people from sorrow and pain, inspire them that anything is possible. He's spoken with individuals, he's spoken with groups of thousands, and he's determined to use his wisdom, his experience, and his voice to help free others from bondage and lead them to freedom and purpose. It would be an extreme honor for him, is what he said, to be on this podcast. And I don't know why, because I ain't nobody. But it's my honor today to have him on. And I know that the enemy must be really mad right now because he's tried everything to stop us from this meeting. So without any further ado, Mr. David Alston, welcome to Mind Your Business, Mindful Intentions, Nurture and Drive Your Business podcast show. Please tell us a little bit more of who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Well, first of all, thank you again for having me. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak to you and to your listeners. It's an honor and a privilege. I believe any time that God gives us a voice to speak, we have to utilize that and utilize it to the fullest. So it is a tremendous honor to me. Don't take it for granted one bit. As far as myself and what I do, I do whatever God tells me to do and leads me to do. I work for the University of North Carolina. I work in the cancer department, working with cancer doctors. I work for over 20 years as an educator, working with children with disabilities. And I'm a podcast. I love the Lord. He is the center of my everything. And I believe that everything has a purpose, and it is purpose for me to be here. And I agree. Someone's going to be blessed by this discussion because we really struggle to get on it.
I'm telling you what, that's the thing I love about this podcast, though. I always say it's Holy Spirit led. He always sends the right people at the right time with the right message for the right listeners to engage. And so whatever the delay was, it's not with destruction because we're still here, right? And so I'm grateful to have you and just blessed that you wanted to be on this show, because this show is actually something that was created to actually help people in the areas that you said. And so to have you here to be able to talk on that and to build on those strengths is very important. So thank you. So I'll let you go ahead and jump in, go wherever you want to go today, and let us follow.
I was expecting a question.
I can't ask the questions.
I just love helping people. I love inspiring and trying to motivate people. I found out about age 19 or 20 that my biological grandmother was first cousins with Harriet Tubman. And when I found that out, it sort of motivated and inspired me to flow in that same vein as who I call Cousin Harry, which is to push people from bondage and chains into liberty. One of the things that I love, and I always mention it on the podcast, is that one of the things that Harriet said was, I could have freed a lot more people if only they knew they were slaves.
Come on.
And I sort of adopted that because how many of us in life have chains holding us back? We don't even know it. We just think that it's just a part of life. And so I think it is the responsibility of podcasts such as this one to reveal to people that you do have a chain holding you back. Now, I can't remove the chain. That's up to you. but
but
I can show you where there's a change. And so that's what I love to do. I love to tell people there's always a better life out there, no matter what you've gone through, no matter what you've been faced with. I've been faced with a lot of difficulties since childhood. Being adopted, was a it wasn't a physical. Well, it was more of an emotional struggle because I've always known I was adopted. It's not like I became an adult and it was revealed to me. Guess what? That's not your mom. She always shared with me that I was adopted. The struggle then happened after I found my biological family. And well, it started before that because as an adopted child, I would be around the family of the Alston family, and yet there was something inside of me saying, "I'm not really one of you. I'm not really an Alston." And especially when a family member would see me and say, "Oh yeah, cuz you look just like you got that nose," and I'm thinking, "No, I don't."
That's tough. That's tough.
Or when you visit a doctor and the doctor says, "Well, tell me a little bit about your family history
as far as
medically."
I
can tell you about my mom and my uncle, but their health has no bearing on me. And so eventually my mother always told me that I had siblings out there, that I always said, that I was adopted, but we could never find my family. Eventually when I found my family,
I was about
19 years old, I found my family. The struggle became even deeper because now I'm with the Alston family saying, "I'm not one of you." But then when I get to the Bright family, I'm thinking, "I'm not one of you. I'm an Alston." And so I found myself being torn, not just between two families, but torn between two mothers. And I asked myself the question, who do I owe my allegiance to? Which mother? The mother that pushed me into life or through life.
Mm.
And I noticed myself not wanting to talk about the other mother when I'm around the other mother.
Mm-hmm.
And so it became a struggle until I realized that I owe my allegiance to both mothers. I remember telling my and after the statement, I'll stop talking because I'm a podcast host. I love to talk. I remember I met my siblings and my mother for the first time, and I really connected because when I was adopted, it was just my adopted mother and I. And so I grew up without any siblings. When I met my siblings for the first time, there was an instant connection. There was a bonding. My brothers and I'm saying, "Look at him. He looks just like me. Wow. We laughed alike, and we played ball together. I hung out with my sisters. But yet there was no real connection between my mother and I. And so one night I remember telling her, I pulled her to the side to talk to her, and I told her, I said, I know there may seem like there's not a real bond between us. And I know why. I think you think that I'm upset because you gave me away for adoption. And I told her there is nothing further from the truth. The bond that I have with my siblings is because I never had them. But that emotional bond that a person has with the mother, I already used it with her. But I'm not upset with you because you could have put me in a trash bag and put me in the dumpster somewhere. But you decided to let me live and give me away. And I said, God had a purpose for everything. It was as if he pulled me away because there's
always
always
been an
argument
and a debate
in
with
with
psychology
between
between nature versus nurture.
Are we who
Are
we
we
are
who we are
because of
because
our
of our
nature,
nature
or because
or
of the
because of the
environment that
environment that
nurtured us?
nurtured us?
And
And
so
so
I had to
I
be
had to be
pulled away
pulled
from
away
the
from the
nature
nature
to be
to be
nurtured.
nurtured.
My
My
brother is
brother
older
is
than I
older
am, and
than
he
I am,
talks
and
to
he
me all the
talks to me
time and
all
say,
the time
"Where
and
do you
say,
get
"Where
your
do you get your
wisdom?
wisdom? Where do
You can just
you can just
say things
say
and
things
talk
and
and
talk and
inspire."
inspire?"
It's because
It's
of the
because of the
nurturing that I
nurturing
got.
that I got.
And then I
And
was
then I was
placed back,
placed back,
and I always
and I
feel
always
like, well,
feel
you know
like, well,
what?
you
I
know what?
must
I
be like a
must be like a
Joseph that had
Joseph
to be
that had to
taken
be
away,
taken
or a
away, or a
Moses that had to
Moses
be
that had to
plucked
be
away
plucked away
and come
and
back.
come
And
back.
so
And so
I said,
I
I'm
said,
not
I'm not
upset with you
upset with
because
you
of
because of
what you did.
what you did.
Not at
Not
all.
at all.
And so
And so
I
I
learned from
learned
that
from that
you can't
you
go
can't
through
go through
traumatic
traumatic
experiences
experiences
and
and
blame the
blame the
experience
experience
on how you
on how
feel.
you feel.
You have
You
to
have to
take what
take
you
what you
went through,
went
take
through,
what you're
take what
going
you're
through,
going through,
and
and
build from it
build
and
from it
realize
and
I'm
realize I'm
stronger
stronger
because it could
because
have
it
been
could have
worse.
been worse.
And so
And
I don't
so I
care,
don't care.
I use
I
my
use
life
my life
story
story
as a way
as
of
a
telling
way of telling
people
people
nothing you
nothing you
say will
say
give you
will give you an
excuse not
excuse
to
not to
survive.
survive.
Mm.
If I can
If I can
survive what
survive
I went
what I
through,
went through,
when I
when
became
I
an
became
adult,
an adult, found out that I
really
wasn't really
adopted,
adopted.
I was
I
sort of
was sort of
abducted
abducted
because she
because
took
she
me
took me
and
and
raised me.
raised me.
And I
And I
still,
still,
and when I
and when I
found out,
found out,
I
I
asked her, I
asked
said,
her, I
well,
said, "Well,
why are
why
you
are you
telling me
telling
this
me this
now
now
when my
when my
adopted
adopted
mother
mother
passed away
passed
10
away
years
10
ago?"
years ago?"
She said,
She
because I
said,
didn't
"Because
want
I
you to
didn't want you to
feel a
feel a
negative
negative
feeling or
feeling
feel
or
bad or
feel bad
confront
or
her. I said,
confront her." I
listen,
said, "Listen,
what you told
what
me
you told
doesn't
me doesn't
affect
affect
how I feel
how I
about
feel
her.
about her.
It affects
It
how I
affects
feel
how I
about
feel
you.
about you.
Because now I
Because
know as
now
a
I know as a
mother,
mother,
you were
you
my
were
mother."
my
I said,
mother."
but
I said,
for
"But
me to
for
walk
me to
around
walk around
bitter and
bitter and
angry,
angry,
listen, we don't
listen,
have
we don't have
time for that.
time for
Life
that.
is too
Life is too
short. We don't
short.
have
We don't
time to
have
walk
time to
around.
walk around."
And this
And this
message keeps
message
coming
keeps
back,
coming
and
back, and
it keeps
it
coming
keeps
back to
coming
us.
back
Now,
to us.
I
Now,
guess
I
someone is
guess
saying,
someone is
why
saying,
is
"Well,
he
why
keep
does he keep
adjusting the
adjusting the
headphones?"
headphones?"
We
We
struggled to
struggled
get
to
on this
get on this
podcast.
podcast.
We
Yeah.
blinked out, we
Blinked
came,
out, we came,
and when we
and when we
finally got
finally got
rolling,
rolling,
you may
you
not
may
hear
not
it,
hear it,
but
but
as I
as
talk,
I
I hear
talk, I hear
echo.
an echo.
Yeah, I don't hear it.
And that's why
And
I'm
that's
kind
why
of
I'm
talking
kind of
slow,
talking
because
slow, because
whatever I
whatever I say,
I hear it
I hear it
repeating in my
You hear
repeating
the
in my
ear.
ear.
playback. Yeah.
I have an
I have an
option.
option.
Take the
Take the
headphones off,
headphones off,
but then I
but
won't
then
be
I
able to
won't
hear
be able
from
to hear
you.
from you.
Oh.
The other
The other
option is
option is
listen to the
listen to the
echo.
echo.
And
And
sometimes in
sometimes in
life,
life,
God will
God
put
will
us in a
put us in a
predicament
predicament
where we
where
have
we
to
have to
listen to the
listen to the
echo.
echo,
Listen to what he
listen to what he
says and
says,
turn
and
around and
turn
hear it
around and
again.
hear it again.
Come on now. Come on
And
now.
most
And
of us
most of
have been
us
in a
have been in a
situation
situation
where at some
where at some
point he has
point he has
spoken to
spoken
us
to
and
us
said,
and said,
"You're going to
"You're
make
going
it,
to make
that
it.
no
That
weapon
no
formed
weapon
against
formed
you
against you
shall
shall
prosper,
prosper.
that there's
That there's
nothing that you're
nothing that you
dealing
are
with that's
dealing
going to
with
watch."
that's going to
And
watch.
because
And
we don't
because we
hear
don't
it,
hear
the
it,
echo
the
comes
echo
back.
comes back.
But the
But
echo
the
is
echo is
inconvenient,
inconvenient.
but the
But
echo
the
is
echo is
purposeful.
purposeful.
You said some stuff right there, brother. Thank you. Let me just say this. You have in a few minutes have laid out some stuff, heavy stuff, right? And a lot of times people are dealing with traumatic experiences and they haven't processed them as an adult. When they get to adulthood and they are still dealing with trauma and all these things that they've gone through, and they haven't understood how to accept and reaffirm who they are within all of this, right? And so you said a lot of things that I think can be very helpful to some people. I know I have a friend that was adopted, and her and I used to talk about it all the time, of her wanting to find her birth parents. And I was grown up with my mother and father, grandparents, cousins, aunts, uncles. And I remember saying when I was younger, I know good and well I wasn't adopted because wouldn't nobody give these folks no kids. I was joking, but I'm just saying. And I was the only child too. But I mean, I grew up in a good home and good family background or whatever. And we have different experiences though. And I couldn't understand not knowing who my father was or who my mother was. And I believe in my heart too, if that were my situation, I would want to know, because I like to know where you come from and what the root of things are. And I like to get to the bottom of stuff. But at the same time, you know, I think about how that affects each party involved. And so I told you about my situation and my children, and they are actually my nieces and nephews, but we brought them into our home and we want them to have an environment where they are loved and they have a normal life as much as possible, right? But I don't ever want them to feel like they are getting something taken away from them because of the situation they were in, why they had to come to live with us, right? And so sometimes it's like, a lot of times they don't like to talk about things like everything is fine where we're at. But I know that there's some other underlying things going on, and we've worked through some of those things. But I try to tell them, you know, as an adult, you don't want this to come knocking at your door and hit you in the face, and you don't know how to handle that situation or understand it. And I know that one of my children really was struggling and not being verbal about it, but really struggling as identity wise, because we had her at a very, very early age. And we're the only parents pretty much that she's known, but I wanted to be honest with her and let her know that, hey, you know, this is because of this situation. This is what's going on. She chose to call us mom and dad, and she chose to adopt us as her parents, right? And so we don't want to take that away from her. We wanted to give her as much normalcy as possible. But as she got older and the parents tried to come back into her life, it was overwhelming for her. She started to think that she had to be a certain way on one side and be a certain way on another side. And you know, and we've always tried to encourage her and teach them the right things, and we try to instruct them the way the Bible wants us to instruct them, you know. But at the same time, some things are like, okay, that's enough. But other things are like, you know, I understand. I don't understand, but I understand. You've gone through something, you have an experience, and you really haven't got to process it. And it's not something that you can even understand yourself. But as an adult, when she goes into adulthood, which won't be very long from now, I don't want her to go out there unable to identify within herself who she is, worrying about who she's, you know, building relationships with, and if she can trust people. And I know that that's very hard. And you talked about that with both moms, you know, if I don't want to talk about this mom with this mom, and I don't want to talk about this mom with this mom. And then you said that your biological mom actually said to you after 10 years, a new, like, you've already went through one trauma, right? From because that is a trauma, just finding out or knowing that, okay, this isn't actually where I came from. And this, but I'm a part of this, and these are my parents, because that's who raised you. That's who you are. It's part of your culture, right? But at the same time, there's still some identity going on over here. And I don't know, but to me it sounded like, and just help me to understand if I misinterpreted what you were saying, that when your biological mom said what she said to you, it gave you a different perspective on who she was, because before you thought she just gave you up. And now you're really staticky.
Okay,
go ahead. Okay. Now I can't hear you. Nope. I can't hear you. I can hear your voice, but I can't hear you clearly. Like, it's not clear. And we want it to be clear, so that way.
Hear me at all?
There you go. There you go. There you go. So did you heard what I was saying? I can hear you.
I'm going to click the preferences on here.
Okay. Can you hear me?
1 second.
Okay.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah. That's really good. Yes.
Let's do audio.
Can you hear me?
Testing. 1, 2. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? We could do a Sprint commercial. Can you hear me now? Let me see.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I can hear you, but you can't hear me.
Oh yes, I can hear you now.
I can hear you now.
Okay, so we're good.
We're good.
Okay, so did you hear what I was saying as far as the correlation between what your mom told you 10 years later opposed to what you thought of her in that situation?
It really was a situation I did not have feelings about what she did. But it put in perspective the type of pain that she went through. Because although I'm not upset because you may have given me away, that pain level for you here. When I found out that you gave me away, I'm thinking, well, now your pain level was like this. And it gave me a newfound respect for her. But going back to your point about finding who we are, all of us have this, I believe, has this instinct to want to identify with our nature, because that is who we really are. The nurturing teaching me how to survive in life. But the nature is who I really am in life. And so that's one of the struggles that a child that is adopted has, is that there's something inside of them that's constantly searching for that nature part. Why do I act the way I act? Am I acting the way I act because I was taught to act this way? Or is it really me? Because if I remember, I'll never forget my first apartment that I moved into. The moment I went into that apartment, I put the furniture in, and I went in the bathroom and I took a rag, and I stuck a rag under the pipe in the bathroom sink. Don't know why I did it. Don't know the purpose of it. The only thing is, I did it because growing up, that's all my mom had in the sink. Up under the sink, the elbow was a rag hanging. I didn't know that the rag was there to clean with. I didn't put the rag there to clean. I put the rag there because nurture taught me to do that. Mm-hmm. And so, as a child, I can change my nurture. I can stop putting the rag under the sink. When I met my biological mom, we were talking one day, and I told her she didn't know that I felt this way. She didn't know that I'm the type of person I could eat peanut butter on a cracker. I can eat peanut butter on a sandwich. I can eat peanut butter just on a slice of bread. I can't understand how someone could take peanut butter on one slice of bread, put jelly on the other side, put it together, and eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I don't like that. I'm talking to my biological mom one day, who happened to do the same type of work when I was doing, working with children with disabilities. And she said that the kids wanted a peanut butter jelly sandwich. And she told them, how y'all can eat peanut butter and jelly? Notice the nature right there. Both of us had a similar dislike to something. I could change not putting the rag on the sink. But can I change not liking peanut butter and jelly because that's part of our nature? And so part of us, we want to know our nature so we can know how to adapt and how to live in life. The thing we have to do is we have to develop this thing called trust. And why I say trust is because whether it's in business, most of the time in business, they don't tell you everything. You have to trust them that they will tell you what you need to know. As a matter of fact, they call you on a need to know basis. Mm-hmm. Because something you can't handle. It's out of your pay grade. We have to trust God that we're on a need to know basis. God, I want to know where I am. I want to know who I am. I gotta trust you that you're gonna reveal it to me when I can handle it, because I can't handle it right now. Some things I couldn't handle at 22, 19, 22 years old, that I can handle it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's all about trusting him that he's going to reveal to us what we need to know, when we need to know, and when we can handle what he's telling us. Because some things he will tell you, and you will, when you find out. If I found out at 20, I found out at 50, I would have turned to alcohol and drugs, and I would have turned from everything. But he revealed it to it when I was mature enough to handle it. Not saying that didn't hurt. Not I had years, you know, but I wouldn't have. I'd have had more than years. I'd have been drowning with Hennessy and tequila and all of that at 20. Whereas at 50, I cried. I said, God, I thank you that you spared me, and I thank you that you've given me some direction. And now I'm mature enough to take this pain that I'm having and turn it into hope. Even if not for somebody else.
Absolutely.
Because I don't have to turn my pain into hope. Because my mom and me singing to my hope is nothing less right. But if I can turn this pain into hope for somebody else, if I can share my story to help someone else along the way, then my pain wasn't in vain.
There you go. And I truly agree with that. A friend once told me it's not what happens to you, it's what happens to you that happens for you to help someone else. And that stuck with me. And it was so funny because she had wrote a note and stuck it when I was working. We worked together, and she stuck it on my cubicle. And every day I could look at that. And I knew, because I know that we are all created with a purpose, and we have some purpose to fulfill in this life. And some things I couldn't understand, but then I could come in contact with people and then be able to relate, and they would tell me their stories or whatever. And by the time we walk away, they're like, wow, you really helped me out, or something on that level. And that's because I've experienced what they're talking about, and I can understand. And so I realized that, I had to go through that so I can meet this person that fit with their needs at where they were at the time. And so that's good that you say that, because there's a lot of people that struggle with not knowing and not having an understanding. And and I always tell my kids too, in life you have choices and you have consequences. And I said, and God gives us parents. We don't understand why he gives us the parents he gives us and why we go through the situations we go through, but he has a reason and a plan for everything. This is to prosper you and not to harm you, right? Because in the end, he wants to get glory out of your story. And my husband always says, it's not the circumstance that you've gone through. You're not responsible for that, but you are responsible for the outcome of how you come out of it, because you're responsible for that. You're not responsible for what somebody did to you, how somebody misused you or put you in a bad place, but it's up to you to come out of that. And we are coming out of things broken and feeling like we don't have any hope. And then I hear stories like yours, and I know that there is hope in this world. And there are people that see things in a different way. And it's all about perspective and how you see it. And just being able to be wise enough, like you said, to be able to have these conversations and to dig deeper to realize that, this is about something higher than me. And I get it. And it does hurt. Pain is real.
Yes.
It's very real. But if we don't process that pain, if we don't understand what it is and accept it and say, yeah, I did go through that. I had to go through that. Whatever reason, when you arrive at the point of knowing, this is why I had to go through that. I get it now. It helps. It doesn't take the pain away, but it helps you understand, like you said, your pain, and it's not in vain. So I really admire the way you put that out there. So when you were younger, like growing up and now to be in the place that you are now, did you always have a love of servanthood? Did you always want to help people? Like, what was that in your nature? Because I believe that it's a nature thing. I don't think you can be nurtured into that unless you choose to.
Well, right. It's the nature part because of my bloodline to help people. But it has to be. You can be an athlete, but you need a coach. And so the nurture part came with me being placed in a home where I was able to work on a regular basis. I was able to learn more about him. I was able to hear people tell me that I had a bed, and I was able to. I used to say all the time, I want to be when I grow up. Because the preacher would always put a glass of juice with the little white rag on it, the napkin on it. He finished, he drank the juice. I found out it's more than ain't no juice. Sometimes you don't even get water. But it was all just I've always felt growing up in Philadelphia, and I live in North Carolina now. I felt like I was out of place because I always wanted to help, yet living in a city in which they didn't care about them. And so, but again, he had a plan for me. Get away. Be placed in, I guess, like I said earlier, learn the way you need to learn, and then come back. Then you have the ability to say firsthand, hey, God said let his people go.
Yeah, absolutely. So now let's take us to where you are in your work and how you are identifying with those who need your help and how you are reaching them.
My job,
in your work, yeah.
Yes, able to communicate. I don't have it because I work with physicians. I don't have any with patients at all, which is good because knowing me, like I know me, I'm crying at someone. But I am able to physicians and make sure that they have everything that they need. But I do get to see firsthand some of the pain that these families with cancer. I do get to read letters from. I read a letter the other day from someone that didn't survive their family with things like that. I don't have any hands-on deal.
Yeah. How does that affect you? Because I know when people have sickness or death around them, and if you've been through trauma, it can trigger that. Has that ever been an issue for you?
It was because my mother died from cancer, and I remember one day a lady that had passed had written a letter to a doctor right passed away. And I managed to get the letter, give to the doctor. And I looked at the letter. The letter was written in the same right there. It was almost like written. Her name was, and basically said, thank all of your help. I appreciate you. We don't have long. And that really broke me down. So you have to have working in that field, in that area. Because most of the people that you come in contact with, they're terminal. And so it's just effective of going to a doctor to get your shoulder looked.
Yeah. I want to tell you, when I graduated from high school, the first job I had was working in a nursing home. And I'll never forget, it was 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm fresh out of high school and just got my CNA license and I'm excited and I'm going to go into healthcare because this is just the first step to being a nurse, right? Yeah, no. Because my first day, sweetheart, I'm on a call. He's right here. Come in here and quit yelling his name. Sorry. That's why I do this from home. But I walk in and the person that I had to attend to was dead. I had to clean him up.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, I'm 18 years old. I'm full of life and joy and I love people. And the first thing I wanted to work in a nursing home because I just get to talk to the people and encourage them, right? And uplift them because I understand what it's like for those people to be there because I had a great grandmother that had got put in a nursing home. And I know that it's hard for the family sometimes to get there and visit. But now I'm dealing with somebody that was dead and they didn't have family, right? Wow. And so that was just the first of many. I became so immune to it that it didn't faze me anymore. You know, I got so immune to death that it didn't faze me. And I had no empathy for death because I knew I understand death. I understand what happens and what happens before you die. And I understand that we were created to live, but to live, you must die. And if you lived right and you lived for the Lord, then you know that you're alive always, right? So it came to a point where the living patients that were there, I was always trying to spend as much time with them as possible. So I'm getting in trouble. And I was like, I got to quit this job. I got to go work amongst the living. And then my godfather passed away. And who cleaned up the body? Me. My grandmother was like, what in the world? She was like, I can't imagine that you were able to do that. And that's when I knew that, you know, the way that it's affecting me is like nothing. It's not affecting me in a way. And I thought maybe that it should. But now I realize that, no, I was there for a reason, because I was able to handle it. And I was able to show my grandmother too, because she really thought a lot of me after that. She was just like, wow, you know, you really handled. And she talks about that sometimes too. You know, she's in her 90s now, but she still remembers that I cleaned up her brother that was my godfather, and I wasn't afraid. And she was just like, wow. But I mean, we go through things and we have these experiences, and it shapes us and molds us to become the people that we are. And like you said, the whole nature and nurture part of it, you know, I had went to a lot of funerals as a child too. Even before I graduated, I have seen a lot of death. But I didn't understand or experience death until I dealt with it, until I seen somebody die in front of me, until I had to clean up the dead body. And that affected me. And so I try my hardest. Like, I understand that when people are going through something, I can feel their pain sometimes, you know, and I can understand what that looks like and how that feels. And sometimes it's heavy on you. And so I can only imagine not only working in the field that you work in, but then losing your mother to that. And I mean, you're just so strong. And it's like you were built with this purpose. But there's some people out there that go, yeah, but I'm not that strong. I can't do what you two did. You both have podcasts. You both are talking to people. You're encouraging people. You're helping people. But I don't have that in me. Can you talk to those people and help them to understand what that looks like?
Yes, we right now, I don't have any sons or I don't have any grandsons, three daughters. I'm 6'2", and I work out. I swim, I ride the bike, I lift weight, and I have muscle. A little boy who is 8 years old, who is only 4 feet tall, has the same number of muscles that I have. The difference is over time he has to grow into it and work it out. And so to say I'm not as strong as you are, really not an excuse. You got the same thing we have. You just have to work it out. You have to work on it and realize that frustrated is not a bad thing. The reason being frustrated is not a bad thing is because frustration is only a result of expectation. If you don't expect what I get frustrated when my team loses. Well, the only reason I'm frustrated that they lost is because I expected them to win. And so being frustrated in life is not a bad. It just means that you had expectations. So what do? You work on it. That's why it is important to make sure that you. I know this may sound crazy. Or this may sound like I'm paid to say this. I'm not paid to say this. That's why you have to subscribe to podcasts and videos such as this. I'll tell you why. My great grandfather and Harriet Tubman's father were brothers. They had a dad. The same blood that was in Harriet Tubman's grandfather trickled down the other side of me. One of the stories that I heard about Harriet Rose, it said, "Tell you why you need to subscribe to podcast." There was a question asked, did Harriet Tubman carry a gun? People say, did she carry a gun or did she not believe it? Harriet carried a gun. The reason why she carried a gun is because that side of the family was the raw side. It was a raw. Her name was Araminta. They were short. They were short. Harry was probably 5 feet tall. Well, being 5 feet tall, she would often lead men displaced from slavery into freedom who were 6'300" pounds. And these men were out there running, and they would get tired. And they would say, you know what? I ain't got what you got. I'm not going another step. The gun wasn't for those chasing Harry. The gun was for those that said, I'm not going to go another step. Harry pulled the gun out and said, oh, yes, you are. Move it. I didn't bring you this far and leave. That sounds familiar.
Come on.
James Cleveland said, don't bring me this far to leave. So podcasts like this, they are the gun that will tell you. I know you're frustrated. I know you're tired. I know you're hurt. I know you're wounded. I know you feel like you. I know you saying I can't do it. I don't have enough. I can't do it. You just don't understand. You know what? You're going to make it.
Come on.
No matter what. No. I have invested in you time and love and energy. And you're going to make it. I don't care how tired you get. I don't care how frustrated you get. There is more down the road. Let me, if I can share this.
Go for it.
One day I was in the house, and I could hear the Holy Spirit speak and say, go out into the street. Stand in the street and walk to where you can see. And so I went outside and I stood there and I looked down. I can see down the road. And the Holy Spirit said, you walk where you can see. And I just started walking. And I was walking. And I got to where I can see. All of a sudden, the Holy Spirit said, I said, walk to where you can see. But I did. Wait a minute. I can see further. And I kept walking. And I got there, walked to where you can see. And he revealed to me, you can't walk to where you can see. Because as long as you're alive, there's more down the road for you. So I don't care how frustrated you get. I don't care how difficult life is. Keep walking because there's always more ahead of you. And they're going to be bumped in the road as far as you can see. They're going to be smooth road. And you can do it. You can survive. There is nothing that comes against you. If it was strong enough to where you can't survive, you would drop dead. But the fact that you're still alive and breathing means that God is pumping air into your system so that you can keep living and keep going. Pick yourself up. Cry a little bit. Realize where I'm talking about how I work out. There's no need of me working on. If my shoulders are weak, let me work on what I need help in. Let me work on the area that I need. And if I can't do it myself, I turn to somebody and say, listen, coach, help me. Train me. And you can do it. No matter where you can do it. One final thing. I'm going to be quiet because
no, you are fine. I told you this is your time to do it.
We all have a life that God has given us. We all have a life. In life, we have areas where we're strong. But we also have areas where we're weak. And I'm strong over here. But I'm weak over here.
Come on.
I'm growing over here. But I'm losing over here. And what we do is we focus on the little shortcomings that we have. We don't realize that we're trying to place somebody in our life. I'm strong over here, but I'm weak over here. And if we ever realize what podcasts like this, what faith-based community, whatever God will place people in our lives, because what He wants us to do is connect with the people that will inspire and motivate us. And where I'm strong right here, but I'm weak right here. But you're strong here, and you're weak here. And if we ever get together, my strong point can fill in your weak point. And my weakness is filled in. That's why the scripture said, let the weak bear those that are strong bear those that are weak. So I'm strong, but I got room enough for your weakness. And if I can put your weakness together with my strength, the devil can't find out really, because we're all strong together.
There you go. Come on now. You said a word right there. You said a word right there. Come on now. Your ministry calling ain't over yet. So listen, you have this podcast. What led you to say, you know what, I'm going to share my story. I'm going to share some encouragement and some inspiration, because podcasts have been around for a long time, and I didn't realize. I've listened to them, but I did not even realize how powerful. I think podcasts are so powerful. And I think that the people that are able to come on there, and it's so easy for people to get on there, because you know what, it's enough room to go around. Everybody can reach somebody on a level. But what brought you to this podcast space?
Well, what I did, I was working when COVID hit, and all of a sudden they put us on, as with the whole world. So everything was just teleworking. And I remember one day around the time, I said, you know what? I'm so excited to be alive that I did a lot. And I started going live, and it morphed into a video every day about lunchtime. I would invite guests over. And then after that, early this year, I said I want to really tune it. I want to do the video, because a lot of my friends, I would listen to the podcast, but I'm on the treadmill. I'm driving in the car. Let me do an audio podcast and invite guests. So I said instead of having the underground railroad area, I want to modernize all of the underground subway.
Okay.
And utilize the theme of giving people the way to liberty, to a better life. And I just love it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. It's so inspiring when people can hear from other people like themselves, see other people like themselves, and be encouraged by other people like themselves, and know that, hey, okay, you did that, and wow, because we start looking at ourselves and going, well, you know what I was talking about ain't even all that bad or all that serious, but I can help some people too, because I got some stuff that I can talk about, and I think that through our testimonies, it strengthened us. And it's so funny, because Joyce Meyer, I was going through something one day, and I heard her say, she said, confrontation is good for healing. And see, I'm like, I don't like confrontation, but I will if I have to. But it's not about confronting somebody to beat them up, but you have to confront some demons sometimes and get them in line to let them know that this is not going to happen no more, and set boundaries. And on that day, I understood what that meant and what it looked like. And it helped me to be able to set some boundaries for myself and for some others, that liberated me to a whole new level of understanding who I am and who I allow people to treat me like, and, so many different things. And I'm like, if I hadn't heard that, I wouldn't have understood it. And so a lot of times, like you said, you don't do you don't do a video, you do the audible. But I love the way, as far as this goes, I try to do a live so people can see it raw and authentic, that we are just two people hanging out, having a conversation. We don't know where this conversation is going to go, but it's leading somewhere. Because
and that's a blessing, because I was going live with this, and then I decided to do the audio that way I could edit it, cut out all of this. Then you get a crazy guest on. That's a whole nother.
See? And it's funny, I say I'm the accidental podcaster. I don't edit. I don't cut anything. When I give it to you, you can do whatever you want to with it. But this is, you're going to get it just like it's served. It's coming.
I edit music and all of that.
Yeah.
For me, that's fun, is doing all the editing.
And it is.
And it gives me, the real thing is, it really gives me an opportunity to listen to it. Because when I'm interviewing you, I'm not really listening to you. I'm preparing the next question for our conversation.
See, but that's why I don't have questions.
Yeah,
I don't.
And I'll go back and I'll listen to it and say, wow, that was powerful.
I promise this podcast is like therapy for me, because I'm listening. I don't want to know anything ahead of time. Like I'll skim through your bio a little bit, but I don't try to ever know anything that my audience doesn't know, because I like to hear, and then I'm like, wow, because I want to be engaged and I want to be present. And that's why I'm like, when people, it's so funny because rarely do I have people come on and say, well, what questions are you going to ask me? I'm like, I'm not. Well, I don't know what I'm going to ask you. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I don't have questions that are laid out, because we need to know realness, and I want to get it in the raw of it, and that's this podcast. You see what I'm saying? But other podcasts do things differently, because that's what they know that their people need and what they get out of it. So it's something for everybody that they can feed off of and get full and walk away and say, you know what? I needed that today, because I bring this podcast on here, but the guests bring themselves here, whoever the Holy Spirit brings, and it's for a reason. And that's why I'm like, it's not for me. It's not for me to try to take over and do all of the talking. It's for you. This is your platform, because there's some people on certain sides of the earth that you ain't reaching from your platform. On this platform, these are people that's untapped, that needed to hear what you had to say. And I want them to have that opportunity. So I'm like, they don't want to hear what I got to say. Because when I go on my podcast, when I do lives and I go on, I'm on by myself. But when I bring other people,
I would go to video podcast platform, I would have two guests on it, about things, and I would look up their little box and say, wow, we've been on here an hour.
Oh yeah.
Wow, time flies.
Yeah. And so, I'm just encouraged today that there are people out there that don't mind sharing, because they know what that does. It serves a purpose, and it's a mission. It's a mission, and it's your ministry, and I think it's self-fulfilling. But you do it with gratitude, and not because you are truly trying to get something out of it. You're trying to get someone to get out of whatever they're in, so that way we can better this place. So I'm grateful again today that you saw fit to come here and to share your story with me. And I know it's so much more to it. And I'm just like, I can't wait to see what happens in the future, because I'm going to be able to say, he was on my podcast. I've had some great people too on my podcast, and it just keeps getting greater and greater with the people and their stories and just the enlightenment that I've gotten from it. So I appreciate you taking the time out today. Tell people where to find you, how to listen, how to be more engaged, and to stay encouraged through your podcast.
Well, the podcast, the website is simple. The Underground Subway.com. And
Underground Subway.
All of the podcasts. I guess that's it.
What social media links are you on?
I'm on Facebook. David Bright Alston. Instagram. David underscore E underscore Alston.
Okay. So is there a book coming out, or is it going straight past that?
There was a book out, but I had to pull the book to revise the book. Okay. Because I found out a lot more after the book was printed.
Okay. So when should we be looking forward to actually getting the story? How far in the future are we gonna be looking to see you on the screen?
If I stop being lazy and try to get something done within the next
No, I have to pull that gun out on you now.
Yeah,
we don't have to pull no gun out on you. Come on now.
It's in here, but you know, you gotta sit down and you gotta yeah.
I get it. I'm working on the blog that I've been working on for 10 years.
There you go.
And every time I say I'm getting ready to do it, I just be like, no, it's not time yet. And it ain't because of me. I just feel like it ain't time yet. When it's time to manifest, it's gonna manifest. I ain't gotta do nothing with it, but it's already there. It's just gotta come into fruition.
You get offered the opportunity to hire what they call a ghostwriter to write things for you. But there's a part of you that says, no, I want my hand.
Yeah. And you know who you can be able to allow to enter into that space and share that with you, because you can't let everybody share that with you.
That's right.
And you know, and tell the story the way they want to tell. You want to tell your story. You want your story to be told. I'm gonna say this real quick, and I don't know, I probably shouldn't, but there was a show that came on the other night with a gospel singer, and the headlines that just kept showing it just was like, the way they were promoting it just seemed like it was really getting ready to tell this fascinating story that was drawing people in. But once I watched it, I was left like, there's got to be some more to the story, because I don't feel like the advertising of what I actually saw match each other. It just wasn't the same. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, they didn't tell this whole story. Something ain't right. Something is missing here. Because from what I thought I was getting ready to see, and then I would have been like, oh, okay, I get it. I was like, nah, that ain't adding up. But I digress. Anyway, don't let nobody tell your story for you. You tell your story.
That's what I need right there.
Yes, you tell your story. And that's why this podcast can be done in the alley, in the garage, underneath the hood of my car. It's my podcast. And can't nobody tell me which way to go. You can't pay me enough to say, oh, we need you to do this, and you can't talk about no. Until they take me off the airwaves, I'm gonna talk about what I want to talk about. I'm gonna have on who I want to have on, and we're gonna do some difference in this world. We change makers and we difference makers, and we're gonna keep coming until Jesus come back.
Right.
All right, David, what is it that you would like to leave our audience with before you jump off of here?
Keep pushing. Keep pushing the free. Keep pushing everything away from you. You weren't born in bondage. You were free. And I read somewhere that says that the Son sets free is free and Don't ever stop until you are free. Don't ever stop until your children are free. Don't leave bondage and leave your family behind. All of you, get out, and get to the light that He said that He give us one life abundantly. He can do it. I believe it. Never met you. I believe it.
Amen. You know what? You just set me up for that one. I'm ready for it. Now, see, the thing is this. It's great when we find out we are related to people and who our bloodline runs from, right? And what we come from and our heritage and these great people we're connected to. But the blood that gives us strength from day to day.
That's right.
That right there, by knowing that, see, by you knowing that Harriet Tubman is your bloodline, that helped you be assured of, yeah, I know I'm supposed to do great things. But because you know that God is your father, you can do even greater. Come on now. Go ahead and write that book. Go ahead and do that screenplay. Go ahead and do what it is that you were put here to do. Because you can do all things through Christ who gives you strength. It's Him that fills in the gaps.
That's right.
Him that intercedes on our behalf. Him that laid it all down so we can get up. Come on, Jesus. But I thank you. And I just want everybody out there to know that the same blood that was shed for us covers us. It restores us. It strengthens us. And if David can do it, look, he was already named with a great name. Come on now. Come on now. Recognize. If Tanika can do it, she was raised with a different name. You ain't heard that before. Tamika, Shanika, but there ain't too many Tanikas. I know another one. She a pastor too. We different. Because God called us and set us apart. And guess what? He called you and set you apart too. So remember, you were created with a purpose. Time for you to go be great. David, hang on for a second while I get us out of here. I thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing more from you and seeing where this road takes you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, you're welcome. Hang on, I'm going to get us out. I'm learning to do this thing a little bit better now. Here we go. All right. Bye-bye now.